So good afternoon and welcome to the Brown Bag Equity Series and happy Women's History Month. It gives me, first of all, my name is Michelle Rainey Woods. I'm the Interim Administrator for Access, Equity, and Acceleration. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Mrs. Frances Baez. Ms. Baez is the product of LA Unified. She earned her BA at UCLA, teacher credential, and MA and Master's in Educational Administration at California State University, Los Angeles, and she is completing her PhD in Urban Leadership at Claremont Graduate University. She has been an educator for 25 years and has served as a teacher in elementary, middle school, and adult school settings. One of her accomplishments is leading a school and culminating students fully bilingual, biliterate, and bicultural in an area in Watts. As Superintendent of Los Angeles District Local District Central, she leads with a social justice lens and makes resources decisions based on equity. However, my personal experience knowing Ms. Baez was when she was a specialist in Local District 7I. She had such a strong presence, so it was absolutely no surprise when I found out she was selected as the Local District Central Superintendent. Again, introducing Ms. Baez, and welcome.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rainey Woods. I'm so happy to be with all of you today, and I thank all our attendees for being with us and for spending this lunchtime together in a setting that's not one related to the work that we do, and hoping to inspire you in a different way in this time that we have together. My name is Frances Baez. I'm the superintendent here in Local District Central, the home of the champions, where I support leaders in serving education for our 78,000 students. And it is my pleasure to be here with all of you. I want to thank you, Dr. Rainey Woods, for your leadership in the Access, Equity, and Acceleration Office and the Division of Instruction for providing this space for us to learn from each other. I also thank Allison Yoshimoto-Tari, Chief Academic Officer in the Division of Instruction, for her leadership and the monumental undertaking of leading distance learning since March 13th. It is my pleasure to be here today to share a bit about myself and the experiences that have influenced my equity journey. As I begin, I want to state my positionality as a Latina raised by a single mom in Boyle Heights and who was challenged by a physical disability. So I hope you walk away understanding my position, what is the intersections, and how to leverage the spaces of privilege that we're in to advance the opportunities for our students. So in this slide, what I want to share with you is my formula for leading equity. So my positionality plus my intersections are what define my equity leadership. So just so we all have a common understanding of what positionality means, I'm using terms from Sensoya and D'Angelo, is that it's the recognition that where you stand in relation to others in society shapes what you can see and understand about the world. And so where I stand and the way I understand the world is that I am a Latina. I was raised in a single parent household from an immigrant family. I grew up as an English learner and I had low means, but I felt very rich in culture. And I also had a disability group that as an adult, you may not notice or be aware of it, but that is also a challenge that has built me who I am and the way I see the world. Now, my intersections are now what the things that I've done outside of what you see when I lead. So this is the common understanding I hope we all walk away with in terms of intersectionality. So it's the understanding that we occupy multiple social positions and that these positions do not cancel each other out and that they interact in complex ways. So the intersections that I want to introduce to you that you may not see on a day-to-day basis, aside, number one is Local District Central Superintendent. That is the one you see on a daily basis. But the other three is that I also am a Claremont Graduate University student in the Urban Leadership Program, and I am studying the intersections or the correlation between investments in our students of African American, Black, Latinx, and the investments that impact reading achievement. I'm also an Unidos US Fellow, which I will share a little bit more about, and also recent past president of AXA Region 16, in which I served in the board for about 5 to 6 years. So I want to begin my equity journey and letting you know that it began when my grandmother was born in 1914. And so she survived the Spanish flu. And she, in the time of the Cristeros, she hid in caves in civil wars and revolutionary wars. So she's one of my heroes. And the equity journey that began in 1914 was that she had my mother, who is a twin, and my mother had my twin and myself. So I come from a family of twins, and my twin plays a very significant role for me. And so the journey that began for my mother in 1945 in Zacatecas brought her to Boyle Heights and to Southern California in the 60s. And these are some images of what Zacatecas looks like. Zacatecas is a colonial state with cultural and agricultural richness. And in the early 20th century, Mexico faced revolution, Cristero wars, and a struggling economy. So 100 years ago, my grandma was in the middle of all of this, of all of the wars. And so she is one of my heroes and, of course, one of my role models. But want to kind of give you a perspective of where my family grew up. It's a colonial state, but also very agricultural. And this is where my roots all began. And this is where my equity journey took me. It took us to Boyle Heights. And as you can see in that middle picture, this is the duplex that I grew up in. And in this duplex, it was my mom and my twin sister. We went to school here in elementary school, and this is where a decision point occurred. So if you could see the right-hand picture there, it's a panorama picture where my twin and I are featured. And this is where we completed 6th grade. And the big decision point was where do we go next? So the duplex next to us there, we've met a family who was attending Paul Revere and Palisades and said, if you're really worried about your community school, get on a bus and come with us to Paul Revere. We had lots of questions, wondered about the choices brochure. We had not met the deadlines, but nevertheless, we said, well, I know that there is something out there for us because somehow in our neighborhood, in a very challenging time in the 80s, it was not a place of promise for education, not to mean any disrespect, but that was just the reality of the times. As I think about those times and the decision point, I think about a webinar I was in a couple of days ago where they were presenting the students who walked out in '68. And I could make a lot of connections to the people who walked out in '68, to the reasons why I left my community school at the time when I left elementary school. So I'll tell you where I went next. So once we arrived to Revere, we were able to begin our journey there in the West LA schools. I went to a school called Palisades High School, and the teacher there featured in this slide, Miss Gilbert, Mama G, she was quite an inspiration to me. One of the things I will never forget, and now makes a lot of sense, is that she always assigned me tasks that were challenging and gave me access to the classics and to the language of academia. She prepared me to compete and attend UCLA. And I am very grateful for that. Unfortunately, when at the time entering UCLA, I had other classmates from the same class who received an education in a different high school setting, who had to take those introductory courses, bridge courses, because they didn't have that advantage of having those tasks and those assignments in their neighborhood schools. And so I appreciate Ms. Gilbert, Mama G, for not giving up. I want to tell you that I very clearly knew the difference between the education I was getting there. I clearly understood there was a difference in socioeconomic status in Palisades than where I was coming from in Boyle Heights. I clearly understood that the students and my classmates had an advantage I did not have. And so because of that difference and that disadvantage and the many years that I traveled on a school bus to Revere and Palisades, and then later moved to Westwood and West LA and UCLA, is that is what drives me. This is the source and the beginning of my relentless effort for my students, wherever I am, whether I'm in Watts, in Boyle Heights, in East LA, in local District Central, in South LA, South Central, wherever I am, my students are going to get access, because I will be as relentless as possible to make sure they don't have to make the decision to get on a bus to go somewhere else to get an education. This is where it all begins. It's in this slide. And so my twin and I, once we took that journey and traveled, we then completed our coursework and went on to UCLA. So this is a decision point, big impact that it had on me. Next slide just kind of gives you where I've been. Won't spend too much here, but I've now over 25 years serving in LA Unified after experiencing post-college job career assignments. I had other assignments before coming to LA Unified, so I know what the private sector is like in either law or in finance. I chose to enter education and serve students and families in LA Unified. And in my journey, I've taught elementary, short-term assignments in middle school, many years in adult education, teaching ESL and US citizenship classes. I've also taught graduate level courses at Cal State LA and University of Phoenix. And as a leader, I've served in multiple roles, from specialist to administrator of instruction, in 2 central offices at 450 North Grand, at Beaudry, 3 different local districts, and today at local District Central Superintendent, serving 78,000 students in 8 community of schools. So each role challenged me and my team effort produced transformational student outcomes. It's that drive and that commitment to our students that keeps me going every single day, even when we're all pretty exhausted and tired, but to say that our students will have access. So in the next few slides that I'll share with you, I will share a little bit about the opportunities and access and things that we've done. So in the left-hand slide there, that picture, that was the last time I read aloud to a student group before we went to distance learning, and really promoting in Boyle Heights our student leaders. And then the bottom slide there was the great challenge that Austin Butner posed to local District East and to me as a leader at the time there, is to launch a offender program. And so we did with the group of team members, but it was such an unknown space. And every time there's been an unknown space, whether it's to launch a community of school, the Fender music program, every time there's been unknowns, I still went right in. So leadership and equity leadership also involves paving a path you do not know. You will lead in a place where you don't have a roadmap, but you have to create that roadmap. And that's where innovation occurs, inspiration occurs, and that's where your vision comes to life. And so that's really been part of what I've been promoting. I want to share with you a recent equity leadership move. I've launched the Student Voice and Empowerment Unit in local District Central. Very intentional is that our students need to have a voice now more than ever, because of the space they're in, that they don't get to be together in school. Also because there's some social justice issues that our students really want to face and take on. And I want to give them that space to face them and take on. So we meet every Thursday, come up with every single Thursday, putting together a conference with my team members, Veronica Herrera, Teresa Reguin, and one of our principals, Dr. Ortiz, has a Gavel Club. And so they put this video together that I want to share with you that captures the energy that we're putting out into our local district and that champion mentality to bring equity and voice to our students.
Hello everyone, our names are Geraldine Sanchez,
Alexis Del Cid,
Aaliyah Ken,
Fernandez,
Frances Rojas,
Dawson Frost, Jalen Guillen,
Daniela Pinello,
Alexa Gonzalez,
Fatima Gonzalez, and Jacob Prado.
and we are some of the members of We are here to tell you that your voice is important to our local districts. Known as home of those champions because our schools are in the shadows of the Lakers and Dodger play. Superintendent Baez believes that our students' voices, our opinions matter. You and I need to be heard.
We need to be able to express ourselves regardless of the situation that may arise, which is why we want to invite you to our conference. We will be celebrating our student voice during our conference, which will be held on Earth Day 2021 on April 22nd from 3 to 5 p.m. Join us and see what we have to say and the things we have to overcome as students.
Yes, join us and maybe you can have a student voice club at your school as well, because every student has a voice and our voice needs to be heard. How will they be heard if we stay quiet? We need to be active and participate in things that help us grow personally and academically, such as Student Voice Club.
Some of the things we will discuss during the conference are topics such as self-confidence, well-being, bullying, college admissions, future opportunities, social justice issues, and how to speak without being judged, to name a few.
Come and join the fun so you can also have your voice heard.
You will be surprised by the things you can accomplish if you just speak up. Listen to our pledge.
As an Ascot Lion, I strive to be a champion. I pledge to be responsible, respectful, safe, and keep my school and community clean.
I pledge to live with integrity, be proactive, and follow healthy habits to be a successful scholar.
I pledge to find the leader in me and soar with all my heart as an Ascot champion.
Lions now!
Now! Roar!
So another way that we're leading equity in local District Central is through our Black Students Matter town halls. And we're deepening that, the acts of urgency by really looking at achievement in early literacy for our students, graduation, achievement. All that we do when we are analyzing data is disaggregating it to ensure that our Black students are being reached, that their needs are being met. And with under the leadership of Andre Spicer, our Administrator of Instruction, one of two, he has been continuing this work by having student voice featured, teacher voice, parent voice, notable Black figures in our community, because we want to remind people that we have cultural assets that we need to tap into. And the other piece about learning and achieving and engagement is the piece that's natural will come, but we need to know that we come from a lot of richness and we should have pride in our community and that we can achieve and surpass the goals that we set for ourselves. Another leadership piece that I want to share with you, this is where I begin my intersections. In my intersections now as a woman in leadership, I've modeled equity leadership by offering Latinx opportunities to learn skills to become a better version of themselves through an annual Junior Girls Conference that began in local District East. And I was fortunate to have the support of Superintendent Huerta at the time, who has said, yes, let's do a Junior Girls Conference, and allowed me to dream and spread my wings. And so we offered many workshops that had to do with healthy relationships, civic engagement, and fiscal literacy, and really dreaming big and daring to dream. And this group consequently was a high school graduating class of 2020. I've also been part of a panel for public comment to promote an LAUSD board resolution called She Leads to promote women in leadership in LA Unified. It was my distinct pleasure to support a board resolution that I hope will continue to live in LA Unified. And these are some images of our Junior Girls Conference, Dare to Dream. This was at USC. Another important component here was a tour to the USC Health Science Campus. I'm very fortunate to have a collaboration and partnership with the USC Office of Civic Engagement, and they've taken me under their wing because they've taken all of our students under their wing and have opened their doors at USC Health Sciences campuses, and here, our neighbor here to Lanterman, to bring them in and provide them tours. And one day when it's safe to come back, we'll resume all of that activity. So an intersection is, I'm a recent past president of AXA Region 16. I served on the board about 5 to 6 years. And so one of the things, again, thanking this board for allowing me to do this, is bringing Women in Leadership Summit, Resilient Leadership. And this was in 2019. It happened at Garfield High School. Very grateful that we were able to bring this to a high school setting. And I think since then, there have been a couple of places where this has happened in the high school settings. Also want to mention that in this particular site, we had Dr. Margaret Wheatley, an American writer who inspired the audiences to push us and think through as a leader what we need to be as a leader today. Also, on the left-hand side, as the AXA president, participated in many legislative action days. Here I'm featured with Wendy Carrillo, who is our assembly member for 51st District. So going to Sacramento to advocate for our students, advocate for our schools, advocate for more resources, because our students deserve more. So knowing that in my positionality, where I grew up, where I went to school, where I lead, looking at the disparities, I'm using this intersection now to call people to action and say, this is what we need for our schools and for our communities. Another one of my intersections that I'm very proud of is my fellowship work with Unidos US, where I have had the great fortune to make policy recommendations to improve outcomes for English learners. And here I want to highlight the mentorship of Hilda Maldonado, the Superintendent of Santa Barbara Unified School District, and Dr. Felisa Ortiz Licon, Principal Education Programs with Unidos US, and my fellows, my colleagues here to the right, who this year we have undergone a rigorous process of learning how to advocate in a very formal way and how to create asks and leave behinds and the research related to asking for policy for our students and for our youth, in this particular case, our English learners. My next intersection is that I'm currently studying the relationship between equity funded formula and reading achievement for our Latinx and African American Black students. And my theory is on districts as agents of their own reform. So if we here in LA Unified, Local District Central, reform the way we do things and think about how we redirect money to our neediest students and neediest population in a very targeted way, then student achievement will improve. And so I will continue to build on that research so that there's more to ground the decisions that our policymakers make, our board members make. I want to be able to introduce the research behind it so that our policymakers can feel confident that what we're doing is the right thing, that investing in our populations and in our students through an equity formula is the right thing. That research cannot go away because we need to continue to push equity and equity funded formula from now until forever. And so that is an intersection as well that I use to push and build equity. Now, this next piece here that I also want to call attention to is the fact that it's really important to have mentors. And I want to tell you that people on these screens never said, I will mentor Frances Baez. No. And they don't sit with me regularly to mentor me. No. These are people that I have identified and said, there's a quality about them that I admire, and I'm going to keep looking at them because there's something I want to learn from them. So mentorship is an important aspect of leading and leading equity because our students and our families need a buddy system. And so these members here are my buddies. And so they've inspired me. And so, and the first table here, this is at our Boyle Heights Community of School, or one of our reception areas. We had a reception, and Dr. Ott joined us. Dr. Ott is an inspiration to me from when I was a teacher. Dr. Rousseau is an incredible inspiration to me. Always look up to her. When she is speaking, I am listening and I'm taking notes because of all that she taught me while I was observing her. I was one of her principals. I was in her cabinet, and she's unforgettable to me. Mr. Huerta, David Baca, my brother, Veronica Reguin, Marisela Sanchez Robles, who I feel is my sister, who is a person who really inspires me. I don't get to see her, but I continue to be inspired by her. Dr. Gibson, an incredible madrina, my godmother, appreciate her tremendously. Claudia Bermudez, who I just met her, but opened the doors and understanding of positionality, intersections, and equity. She gave me the language to understand and to be able to speak. I have to tell you, all these people on the screen, I don't see them every day. I don't think that they even know that they're my mentors, but they are. So I want to encourage all of you, have a buddy, have a mentor, have somebody you look up to. I'm continuing my mentors here. Monica Garcia is a big mentor because I see how much she fights for equity, for our students, for access, for opportunity. She's also a board member for the schools where my cousins attend. And so her leadership is important for my family because I know that they're going to get access and opportunity. Again, with Marisela Sanchez Robles, and at the bottom here, the teacher on red, she's, I'm her starfish, and I appreciate all she does for me every single day, getting a little text message from her. And she is my mentor, and she's someone that I appreciate tremendously. Lourdes Ramirez Ortiz, I look up to her, look at her in her gown, her doctoral gown. She's my mentor, and I hope to one day walk through that tunnel at East LA with my cap and gown as well. And then last but certainly not least, Austin Butner, who has pushed me to no ends, and I am every single day grateful, but also challenged by all that he presents. But I've grown tremendously, and so has our district due to the tasks and challenging obstacles. He says, let's figure it out, and we do. Also very proud to share with you the people that I lead Local District Central with, and that we lead equity as champions. Julie Gonzalez, she is my model for grace. Andre Spicer, who is the model for champion leadership, and also for, as a classmate, I feel like he is my leadership twin. So I'm glad that he said yes to join our team. To Miguel Science, who I always know we're going to be safe and we're always going to be secure, and he's always going to be working hard for all of our students and our families. Proud to work and lead with Local District Central's 8 community of schools, and my colleagues, Titus Campos, Norma Spencer, Susana Ansley Gutierrez, Dr. Charles D. Smith, Dr. Chie Bianchi Tayama, Veronica Moscoso, Dr. Elizabeth Bernal, and Carlos Montes. These 8 leaders are taking on this color for math, and every single day they're leading our schools in these very challenging times, handling the polarity of operations and instructional leadership. Every single day, I'm grateful that they're leading the schools that they are, and grateful that they're part of Local District Central, home of the champions. So in the next few slides, I want to be able to share with you the future of Local District Central, the theory of change that guides and drives what we do. But first, I want to begin with just a little quick orientation about what a theory of change is. So that's when you are unfreezing a current state and establishing new approaches to meet the future. So imagine an ice tray that you have in the freezer. Imagine it's March 13th. You take that ice tray out of the freezer, it's March 14th, March 15th. It begins to thaw out. Now it's completely in liquid form. Now we're in 2021. As we now start looking at what April is going to look like, we're going to start freezing again. That ice tray that got unfrozen March 13th, we've had an opportunity to redo that ingredient. So this whole year, when we've been learning about distance learning, about different technologies and platforms and approaches, it's our time to now have that ice tray have a little bit of cucumber, a little bit of strawberries and berries, and make it a flavorful ice tray that we can use and put into our drinks. We're about to refreeze again. So now we have to think about all the things we've learned and what's going to be different. So in Local District Central, our theory of change takes all of that into consideration, and it's the following. So in LDC, home of the champions, will change learning spaces to transformational communities, addressing social justice issues through deeper learning. And this will lead to students prepared to excel in the 22nd century. Now, deeper learning, when it's a hyperlink there, when we click it, when we present it to our team members, it's work around Linda Darling Hammond. And the work we want to highlight here is that we're here to go deeper in our learning. We're here to understand the social justice issues. We're here to do project-based learning, work-based learning, but it's around the issues that our communities face. Where the 5 and the 2 meet, the issue we're dealing with is gentrification. Where we are in South LA, the issues may be about homelessness, access to fresh fruit, access to green space. Those are all the things that we can work towards alleviating and creating solutions for. And leading to excel in the 22nd century, we're already seeing and hearing It's about caring, commitment, communication. I think that might have been a dead link there. Communication and caring. And so that is the grounding piece to our theory of change. Our theory of action is that when LDC enacts cycles of continuous improvement to meet every student learning goal, students will excel. We kept it very simple because right now we need to get to the basics. We need to set expectations, our SMART goals, look at daily key tasks for teacher, our principal, instructional teams, our community of school administrators, and then come back and close the loop and say, did we meet these outcomes? And if not, why not? And what we need to do different. And that formula needs to continue to live in all that we do. And this is our foci. When I arrived in October 2020, we were faced with many changes, but really wanted everyone to focus on this is about offering our students standards and engagement strategies that are relevant to the high school graduating class of 2021 to 2032. With the equity lens, our Black students matter, we see you, we hear you. And our populations at the margins, our ELs, our students with an IEP, our gifted students, those that are experiencing a gender identity, and those that are unheard. And this equity lens here is in our foci, so this is another way that we reiterate equity and speak the word and say the word equity, and that we will plan lessons through a universal design for learning for our students to have many different approaches in the classroom by cost that will engage students at every level. This is the literature that guides us, beginning with the opportunity myth, remembering that it is a myth that all of our students get that access to the grade level tasks for them to achieve, and that our goal is to bring those that access to them. And Is Everyone Really Equal is the book that I began with, and really understanding and creating a level playing field for how we speak about equity, how we speak about race, how we speak about positionality, intersections, microaggression, systemic systems and barriers that interfere, oppression and power, a stratified education system. This book is the 101s that should give us the confidence to speak about what we need to do to interrupt the systems that interrupt our students from succeeding. And then a couple of other titles that I use with my leadership team that I also encourage you to take a look at. And then, of course, leverage leadership. It's the 101s of instructional leadership. Definitely always having those systems in place with data analysis, professional development, instructional leadership walks, giving feedback. It's the 101s we can't let go of. I'm every single day challenged by the fact that much of our time is spent on operations because we have to be safe. I'm very much concerned that our ability to lead instruction and our muscle to lead instruction is weakening. I worry about that. I worry and I hope that we continue to build that muscle so we don't lose it when we come back. Want to call it out? Hope that you reflect and wonder about the operations. Unavoidable, I recognize that. But what can you do today to remind yourself of how you lead success and how you lead improvement? And then we have a collaboration for the Center for Love and Justice, which we launched a couple of weeks ago, and so very proud about the work that we're beginning with them. The three main pieces of the deeper learning that we're partnering with Dr. Rashad and the Center for Love and Justice is around anti-racist deeper learning and looking at assignments in their complexity, how students work when it's complex, aligns or exceeds standards, and it includes higher order thinking skills. And the craftsmanship, well-crafted work means done well with care and precision, and that it's authentic, that there's authenticity involved. Demonstrating original thinking, creative ideas, and personal voice of students. And that's the essence of the deeper learning and how we are collaborating with the Center for Love and Justice to embrace and deepen the work on anti-racist deeper learning. And the next slide, I'll just if we could please watch this 3-minute video that speaks a little bit about those aspects of anti-racist deeper learning.
this is not to replace standards. Standards are the floor. What we're suggesting here are 3 pillars that might be, let's call them like grounding for students doing real work. They're doing the real work can still be connected to cross-disciplinary standards, big key ideas and concepts, social emotional learning, but it's grounded. And by the way, I'm going to say that these aren't like exhaustive. But if you're looking for a way to begin like articulating a different set of principles that build on or connect with or support standards-based learning, I would suggest these 3. 1, complexity. The second is craftsmanship. And the third is authenticity. The notes are listed there, so I'll just give you a little narrative about the way I think about complexity. Complexity to me is about, and these come from, by the way, from a visionary learning, expeditionary learning, EL education down the bottom right-hand corner. So you can see more of their work. This is original to us. But complexity refers to like sort of multiple disciplinary points of view brought into focus into a particular experience. Everything is connected. The other piece that I would say about complexity is that it should require some emotional labor. It should mean something, that there's a sense of contribution, and it's not just I'm intellectualizing a thing, but through the complexity of the work, I can bring my emotional labor to the work. And there's a prioritization around application. Like really do something. So instead of reading about biology, working like a biologist might work. Craftsmanship. There is something magical that happens when young people create something that is beautiful and well crafted and well received by the person that it's intended for. When we as human beings create something that others can appreciate, we are changed forever. Like something happens, and it happens in particular for young people. You saw it even a little bit today with Zelma and with Amani, like the pride and joy for creating something for an audience and sharing it. The last piece is authenticity. Kids know what fake work looks like. They can smell BS, okay? So we're not just talking about like, simulations. We're talking about like real work that does require original thinking and that frankly makes a contribution to the world in some way. A really strong piece of authenticity as I think about it, and I listed it here, is that it also like speaks, like the student's voice is present. And they're not just like regurgitating what they did, but they're reflecting on that experience in some way. And to me, that's how we get to deeper equity, is having a place where all young people have an opportunity to contribute something. And there's not like a gate. You got to know this before you can contribute, but you can contribute right now. Complexity, craftsmanship, and authenticity.
Thank you. And I want to leave you with this last slide. As you can imagine, leading with an equity lens leaves one pretty exhausted. So I am human and I have experienced loss and pain since 313, just like you. But I am fortunate to have a husband who picks me up and motivates me. We begin each day praying for the end to the pandemic and for schools to open, and for mental and physical well-being. And so he's my partner and he picks me up and we get right back up. So I'm here thanking you for sharing this space and time. Wanted to tell you a little bit about myself, what drives my equity lens, my positionality, my intersections, a lot of perspiration. But want to conclude with my husband, who is so patient with me, and every single day inspires me to keep going. And every single day we pray a rosary saying for an end to the pandemic and for our schools to reopen. And I know that very soon that's going to happen. So our prayers are being answered. So with that, thank you very much. And I believe there's a Q&A, but I thank you all for spending your lunchtime with me today.
So thank you, Ms. Baez. And I just want to ask you, or just want to tell you actually, that I want you to know that I have put you on my list as a mentor. So because you are so inspiring and encouraging, and just love your work and love the champion mentality and your razor-like focus on equity and social justice. So thank you. I know we're going to have questions. I know there's so many. I'm saving the chat for you because there's so many comments as far as you being inspiring to all, and you're powerful, encouraging, and we really want really enjoy what you said to us. So really appreciate that. I want to actually introduce Alva. Alva, come on out, because she really, she wanted to make sure that you were here to speak to us. We understand that last year, March was the month that you were going to speak, but she was determined to make sure that you spoke. So Alva.
Thank you. And I wanted to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. Obviously, we want to offer our deepest gratitude to our presenter, a phenomenal female leader, and especially one of our own, right? One of our district leaders, which I think is very meaningful for all of us in the work we do. I wanted to say thank you for enlightening us with your equity and leadership journey. It was so enriching, and also for inspiring and challenging us as we continue to serve and lead our students with intentionality, equity, and inclusivity. And I welcome, if anybody has questions, because, we have the opportunity in a few minutes to have her here with us.
So I think with your presentation, Ms. Baez, that you've answered a lot of our questions as far as how to do the equity work. I know Julie has a question, but you're really inspiring again regarding, how you did the work and including your life into it, right? Because you're human, right? And I'm glad you said that, because as a woman, making sure you're balancing all those balls, but you do it very well, and really appreciate your presentation. Julie, you had a question?
Yes, the questions are coming in fast and furious. So
Okay.
Clarissa Palacios asks, what advice do you have for female leaders who are thinking of pursuing a doctorate program?
I'm going to be biased and say go to Claremont Graduate University, because you get concierge service and support. But get a mentor, get someone who's going to support and cradle you all the way through, because those supports are available in our in the PhD programs. Think about whether you want an online program or if you want one on ground. I was kind of forced into one online, but my intention was to be at the university. And get in a cohort, because you support each other. Ande Spicer and I are together in a cohort, and I feel that we help each other get through the coursework and so on. So our Saturdays are spent in coursework. Know that it's temporary, invest in it, and just keep inspiring yourself. Have that dream board, so you keep remembering why you're doing the work, because it's rigorous, but not forever, just for a short period of time.
Okay, Dr. Baez, we have another question from Iris Yenego, and the question is, how do you keep your team motivated despite conflicts and obstacles?
Yeah, I think, hi, Ms. Yenego, so good to see you. The conflicts, how do you keep your team motivated? I think that's where that inspiration and that fire comes through, is them to see the authenticity in what you bring to the table. People will see when you're not being authentic, and that will probably be the first barrier to people becoming motivated in this time. There's conflicts and obstacles, but if we're focused on students, no matter what those disagreements are, we know at the end of the day, we need to get a student engaged or connected to device. We know we need to improve literacy outcomes. We have a lot of data to tell us what we have to do. So despite all those conflicts and obstacles, stay focused on the data and on the students, because as leaders, as professionals and educators, that's the third space. That's what it's really about. It's not about all the other things. It's not about the adult things. It's about making sure our students get what they need today.
Thank you, Dr. Baez. We have a question from Luis Gadea. Could you summarize what the findings of your thesis were?
Oh, I'm not done. I'm in the process, but I can tell you right now, it keeps changing because there's so many variables that keep coming up. Number one, it's funding for our students of color. Number two is professional development. But now I'm finding another issue. How many minutes are students engaged in the learning and the investment? So if we invested in a reading teacher, and if we invested in professional development, but if our students are not attending, they're not getting access. So that becomes a new variable. So every time I'm going in deep, I keep finding a new variable and keep peeling the onion, which is actually a good thing, because as we're peeling the onion, we can try to resolve the issues at the moment.
Okay, Dr. Baez, I have two more questions for you right now. One attendee asked, what advice would you give when doing the equity work and facing through your own perceptions of the work?
I would say read Sensoy and D'Angelo and find out what your positionality is. And as you're leading the work, follow the literature if you're a little uncertain about how to approach it, because that will give you more confidence in being able to lead it. And then surround yourself with people who can lead it the same way so that you can cover more ground in the work.
You shared you went out of your community to high school, wondering if you think students still have to take the bus out of their community to attain the success you have.
I understand that students do. As a matter of fact, there's one student in our student voice unit. She was being transported to the valley somewhere. Right now she goes to Cortines, and she explained that there was a disparity, but also saw that when she got to Cortines, she received a lot of support. She understands equity because she already knows what it looks like when you take a bus and go across the city. But right now she finds that she's successful because she has the supports in place, and she understands that that's what equity means.
We have one more question from Dunya Fernandez. Considering the national trend in other organizations and companies to provide training on cultural diversity and equity issues, how do you think LA Unified has progressed in that area to meet the goals of social justice?
I'm actually very proud that they're breaking ground. So there's like bringing Dr. Tyrone Howard, there's going to be a series of modules that are actually very engaging. They're not compliance in nature, but they really ask us to examine our biases and the anti-bias work. I'm proud of LA Unified because they are funding based on equity. I'm proud for LA Unified that they're looking specifically at access to higher level courses for our students, challenging the grading practices. This year has been a year of challenging a lot of the systems that kept perpetuating that. So although you may not see it yet, you will see it soon, because this whole time there's been lots of people in Division of Instruction, Carlin Powell, a lot of leaders who have put together the professional development and the capacity building so that people understand what that work is all about.
Thank you, Dr. Baez. I have one more question. Sylvia Collins asks, what advice do you give leaders as we pivot to hybrid learning?
The advice would be probably the same as to just take care of yourself and focus on connecting a student to learning so that you will find the rewards and all the effort that you're putting in. Because the challenge going in now to remote learning is that everyone is highly stressed about it and highly anxious. And as the leader, you're at the forefront of the impact of that anxiousness. So you're going to have to really strengthen yourself, lighten the load as much as possible so that you can find a healing space of recovery so you can come right back up again and comfort and console the families that are experiencing the loss at the moment, the anxiety at the moment, and reward yourself by seeing a student learn. That I think is very therapeutic to all of us. If you saw a student improve academically, or that student have a discussion or read or write or think critically, that becomes rewarding and reminds you why you're there every single day and helping our schools go through this hybrid return.
So again, there's no more questions, but there are a lot of comments that we will save for you. But Ms. Baez, thank you. Mrs. Baez, thank you so much. Frances, thank you so much for your for being here and taking the time just to give us, I'm sure everybody is thinking about like, how can I, just push forward and contribute to the equity lens, equity and the social justice lens. So thank you so much for your presentation, and appreciate you and look forward to working with you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dr. Rainey Woods, and thank you to everybody. Thank you, Alva, and I appreciate all of our participants today for this brown bag session. It was quite a pleasure and an honor to share this with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.